Welcome back. My name's Simon Turner and I'm the campaign manager for Driving for Better Business.
I'm Peter Golding. I'm the founder and managing director of FleetCheck.
In the previous video, Peter and I outlined some of the challenges that many businesses and employers are going to face during the current disruption for COVID-19. And we outlined a series of short videos that we're going to follow where we looked at some of these issues in greater detail. And that's what we're going to do right now on the subject of essential drivers. Now, there's many things we're going to discuss, but one of the key threads I think that's going to link all of these videos together is no matter what the challenges you face in the coming months, none of it makes any difference to your duty of care. You still have a responsibility to the people who are driving for work on behalf of your business and also to other road users to make sure all your business operations operate safely.
And I completely reinforce that, Simon. I mean, an example, the relaxation, the temporary relaxation of the driver's hours regulations, which is implemented and will be reviewed later in April, is recognising that there are people delivering essential services where they may need to do extended hours to get food or to get medical provisions into the right places. But what we still need to look at is that fundamental issue about driver fatigue. There's a reason why there are driver's hours and regulations to do with driving hours embedded into our organisations. But the relaxation of them doesn't mean to say, as you quite rightly said, that we need to be complacent as far as the health and safety. I mean, a lot of us have seen that tragic case that was recently publicised. Simon, I know it's something you read about in particular.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Peter. There was a case that finished last week, a prosecution brought by the Office of Road and Rail against a contractor in the rail sector, a welding company. Now, there were two guys working for that company who set off from home at 4:30 in the morning. They'd done a whole day's work and they were then requested to go and do an emergency overnight project, which having completed that, they were driving home at effectively 5:30 the following morning. So they'd been working consistently for 25 hours. And tragically, they crashed into another vehicle and both the driver and his passenger were killed. Now, the key things to come out of that was that the company was found guilty of mismanaging fatigue. They hadn't followed their own fatigue management procedures. They hadn't followed general hours for workers in safety critical sectors. But there was also an issue over driver eligibility because the driver was only 20 years old and the insurance policy for the company only covered drivers over 25. And when they talked to other people in the company, that was found to have actually been a regular policy that was flouted. Younger drivers were regularly driving vehicles they weren't eligible to drive.
And I think, Simon, as you said, it's a tragic case, and obviously we can all reflect on that. I think this eligibility of driving is critical as well at the moment. We're seeing this massive expansion, but a lot of these businesses are forced to bring on more and more staff, and it is imperative the onboarding processes are as robust as you would normally do for normal recruitment. We're license checking, there's no change in rules and regulations to do with license inspections. The drivers need to be legal to drive. We need to be confident that those drivers have the competency as far as the audit trail to do with policy, medical declarations, everything else that you would normally do on a standard declaration. The issue that I see also as a increasing concern, and we'll cover this off on other videos, is now we are seeing this relaxation of the MOT. So we're seeing this extension, be it on 3 months or 6 months. We are highly likely, and also the servicing intervals can be impacted. But the vehicles that are being driven now, it is imperative that drivers are doing regular checks on these vehicles. And you should be instructing and providing the necessary equipment, ideally a technology solution to this rather than paper. In the current market, clearly we can understand that. And I know not only the safety inspection is relevant, but I know it's one of the we talked about, Simon, to do with their competency and their fitness to drive.
Yes, and I think allied to that, it's becoming a much bigger problem because of the drive to recruit in those essential sectors, particularly the home delivery market, for instance. So you've got a lot of inexperienced drivers coming into businesses. So the issue of vehicle familiarisation is really important, especially if you've got someone coming in who's only really driven a car. In normal times, you would expect to make sure that person was inducted properly with some training if they were going to drive a van, for instance. So you've really got to make sure your drivers are properly familiarised with the vehicles they're going to be driving, and also that they're competent to do so. You know, driving a van or any specialist vehicle is difficult at the best of times. So when businesses are working to capacity, as a lot of them are now, it's even more important. But on the fitness to drive thing, one thing that's even more important now is we're seeing a huge increase in the number of prosecutions for drug driving, for instance. I know that many of the police forces now stop more drivers for drug driving than they do for drink driving. And some research we've just completed at Driving for Better Business, it hasn't been released yet, but it shows a staggering level of drug use among not just any drivers, but particularly at work drivers. The number who freely admit to taking illegal drugs and driving either immediately or within 48 hours after taking those drugs is quite significant. So if you're recruiting staff and you're driving, you're running a business where you've got lots of drivers who are potentially fatigued, they could be taking drugs to help them stay awake even. So I think that's a really significant issue that businesses need to be aware of.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, the combination of not only looking at the competency of them and obviously the vehicle they're driving, and I think reinforcing what you said at the beginning, Simon, you know, this is a fundamental duty of care. And I think what we are equally concerned about within all of our businesses and what we're dealing with at the moment is, you know, we are primarily concerned about the continuity of support if you are providing an essential service. But I mean, the court case that you mentioned, 7 years for it to go through to, you know, I can't imagine the mental strain that must create on any directors and people that are involved in that side. And just maybe as a final point, because I know we've said these are short videos and we want to keep them short, it's something we've never had to think about before, where you are dealing with organisations with multiple shifts now and the same vehicle being used by multiple people, is the sanitation issues.
Yes, I think the government seems to be saying that the virus can live on hard surfaces, and particularly plastic appears to be the worst, for up to 72 hours. So if you've got a vehicle that's being used across multiple shifts, or that handover has got to be carefully managed and the vehicle cleaned. And if you've got new rental vehicles coming onto fleet or you're defleeting, you've got to take account of that sanitisation issues as well, I think.
No, it's good. And I think, you know, as you say, hopefully we've given you a flavour of some of the points. We all obviously familiar with the gov.uk site. If you're not familiar, then please go and look at it. There is the issues and the restrictions to do with the suspension, the temporary suspension of some of the driver's hours are in there, and along with many other things to do with the definition if you are deemed to be providing this essential service. The next video we're going to do, again, a short video, will be on non-essential drivers, and we hope you found this short session of value. So thank you very much indeed for your time. Goodbye.
Thank you.